What brings us together, what bonds us together, is that we are all Reach parents or Reach family members. Sue knew this, and it was the basis that she brought to bear in every aspect of her work. This is a nice photograph of Sue. It's taken from the millennium year, spring 2000, and one of the rare moments when she allowed us to capture a good image of her. She stayed below the limelight, didn't love her own trumpet, so well done today. Next one. Aspect I'd like to talk about Sue, first of all, as a parent, because she was a Reach parent. Secondly, Sue as a branch coordinator. Later on, then Sue is our national coordinator for quite a number of years. And Sue in the context of the Reach Activity Weeks, or Boss Lady, as she was affectionately known by the kids. And ultimately, Sue's legacy. And starting with Sue as a parent, and because she was a parent, and that's where she came from. And that photograph is Natalie, Sue's daughter, now in adults. But Sue was the first point of contact for many of the people in this room, and for a lot of people in the greater organisation outside of this room. And talking to people yesterday, they had very poignant memories of that first point of contact when their whole world has fallen apart following a scan, or when the Labour ward bombshell arrived, and all their hopes and aspirations are coloured, shall we say, and they needed somebody to talk to. They were able to talk to Sue. She was the first point of contact. And because Sue is a parent herself, because she had a daughter Natalie, because she dealt with all of the difficulties, Sue brought an empathy to the job that helped all of those parents, and they have very fond memories, and some of them are described in shared experiences. They have very fond memories of that first point of contact, that first phone call. And all the skills, all the experience that Sue brought to bear in the job came from her role as a parent and in raising Natalie. And she also took, an initiative that a lot of us didn't take. For example, she made the first video of toe-to-finger transplant in conjunction with Professor Simon Kay. And she had a very good relationship with Simon Kay. She could pick up the phone and talk to him, which many of us could do that. But she made that video around Natalie's experience, and she would lend that to people. She could relate to the experience that parents were going through as a parent, and that actually made her very powerful in her role in Reach. Secondly, as a branch coordinator, and I don't have a lot to say about Sue as a branch coordinator insofar as I didn't really know Sue back then. I got to know her later on as a national coordinator. But the point about it is that she was one of these parents who stepped up, who took responsibility, who made sure that there was a branch of Reach in the Northamptonshire area, specifically Wellingborough, and that Reach was available to other parents. How many of us actually do that? But she did that. And in so doing, she developed more skills, more experience, more knowledge that she was able to impart to other branch coordinators later on, and she became national coordinator. When branch coordinators had difficulties, they could always talk to Sue and get advice, and that experience helped her to manage change through the years as we grew and developed and became more successful, and to help branch coordinators to do an even better job. Thirdly, Sue as a national coordinator, which I suppose is the role that we all know her best. in recent years, or Chief Operating Officer as we dubbed her in more recent times. She took over the role in 1994 and she really made it a very hard act to follow. And in addition to the role, you know, answering the phone, dealing with the emails, dealing with members' inquiries and organising things, we just kept throwing more and more work at her. And she just took it all on board because, number one, she was a rich parent. Just a few examples where Sue demonstrated that she was a doer rather than a talker. She actually made things happen for Reach. And that's become self-evident in the last couple of months. And for example, in 1996, Jeremy Beadle joined us as patron, and one of his ideas was to do Jeremy Beadle quiz nights, which were very successful for us. And we had quite a number of quiz nights over a number of years. And guess who got to organise all of those? I mean, it was thrown at Sue. Here's another task for you to do. Link up with Jeremy Beadle, find venues, get the prizes organised, get the raffle organised, and so on. And ultimately, make sure that the night was a success and bring the money in for Reach and account for that fund. That was just one example of something that we threw at her. I'm going to run very quickly through these and then I'll deal with them one at a time. The Jeremy Beadle quiz nights, the first office, Reach's first office in Wellington, Sue set that up. That was an initiative of hers. And when we, in Millennium Year, decided to have Reach activity weeks, Sue was involved in that. And ultimately took responsibility for that. Along the way, we threw her a webmaster hat, chatboard moderator hat, all of this before the advent of Facebook, and in more recent times, she also took responsibility for Facebook. I personally can relate to some of the things that I was responsible for throwing at her in 2003. I happened to be the chairman, and I felt that 1978 to 2003, 25 years of Reach, the trustees felt that it was important that 25 years should be marked in some way. That entailed a lot of work, and Sue was in the background to help us with that. And in 2004 we did the first Reach AGM in Ireland, and you can imagine the amount of organisation and work that went into that, and only for Sue it certainly wouldn't have taken place. This picture actually is from the very first Jeremy Beadle quiz night that we did in Dublin. That was in Croke Park, one of the big football stadiums. Very young Jeremy Beadle at that stage, and we actually surprised him with his birthday on that one. So, can you imagine the sheer amount of work that went into putting together a Jeremy Beadle quiz night, in terms of the venue, in terms of the prizes, in terms of drumming up support and getting people to come along to it, and ultimately accounting for what needed to be done. And we did 10 or 12 Jeremy Beadle quiz nights between London, between Birmingham, between Glasgow on a number of occasions, and Dublin on a number of occasions. And for all of those, the buck stopped with Sue. She was ultimately responsible for making sure that the thing was a success and that we raised the money. Yeah, the very first one was Lydia. The next one is the first Reach office. Again, Sue actually took Reach out of her spare bedroom and took the initiative and found our first office. And even, you know, for a first office, if you look at the signage, if you look at the shop front, it was on the high street. you know, it took us up a new level, didn't it? And our own phone numbers and fax numbers and so on. And later she moved us successfully to Cornwall and embraced the technology involved, so that we had a low-call telephone number no matter where you were in the UK, and modern communications like email and so on. So she was the one that came to the trustees with the initiative and said, you know, this is something we need to do. And she helped us, or pushed us maybe by times to move up in the world, move the organisation, move the profile of the organisation higher. Activity weeks. For Millennium Year we decided that, you know, we needed to do something because we were losing the members after about age 10. Reach was relevant as a parent support organisation, and for the kids it was relevant until about 10 or 11. And after that, the kids were losing interest and they didn't want to come anymore. We felt we had to do something. And one of the ideas was that we would hold a Reach Activity Week. And from the get-go, from the year 2000 right up to this year, we've had a Reach Activity Week everywhere, every year. And we've had them in diverse locations throughout the UK. And initially we made the mistake of going to disability centres. And the feedback from the teenagers and the young adult leaders was that, what are we going to disability centres for? With our schools we go mainstream. We cope with the mainstream, right? We don't need a disability. So we stopped going to disability centres and we chose better centres, bigger centres. But can you imagine again the amount of coordination involved in collecting and dropping those kids? It was a logistical nightmare. Sue solved it by having two coaches running north-south down from Scotland through the UK on the motorways and linking up with people at the motorway service areas, which a lot of you would know. A logistical nightmare. And she had to negotiate with bus companies and make sure that happened and happened smoothly. The amount of coordinating, getting the accommodation involved, planning the activities, and ultimately taking responsibility for our children, 50 of our children, age 10 and upwards, for a week of high-profile, high-adrenaline activity. But she did it, and she proved to be very influential in terms of her influence on the teenagers and on the young adults. And ultimately she got them all home safely. She also worked very well with the youth leaders. I mean, this was a new area for us, and Sue was up to it. She had a way with teenagers, which I certainly couldn't admit to having. She had a way with them. She was able to develop them. She was able to bring them on. And signs on it. You want to look around our AGMs now, and we have some very impressive young adults who have come through the Reach Activity Weeks, and I think Sue was a major influence there. The Reach Activity, Sue as always led by example. On the very first activity week we put her down the zip wire, and she did it once. So Reach Activity Week was a significant success for so many reasons. Not least her work with the teenagers and with the young adults. There's a couple of the next one, please. A couple of humorous moments here. I don't know if you recognise. Okay, what can you see there? Okay. Anybody recognise who this is? It's none other than James Jones over here, who has been coming to us now for 7 years, providing the audio-visual and upping the game every year and making us as professional as he makes us look. James is the one falling off the sled. I remember James as a young teenager. He was a bit of a handful, and he would like to push the boundaries a little bit, as most teenagers do. But Sue's gift was that she could work with them and she could get them to do what she wanted them to do, and take responsibility at the same time. And they dubbed her boss lady, and it was a term of respect. There was no derision in it at all. She was boss lady, and she commanded respect. And those kids have come back to us, and We have some fantastic role models. Next one. There you go. This is Tim Smith. He was one of our very first leaders. He's now Dr. Tim Smith. In fact, he's a consultant in trauma medicine. I think he's in Liverpool. But if you noticed, he's water skiing one-handed. And Tim used to take his myoelectric arm and clamp it on the top of a fence, or before he climbed a wall or a zip wire. And I can't imagine what he did before he went water skiing, but he water skied one-handed. And again, this was an initiative of Sue's, that for the leaders, she took them to the British Disabled Water Skiing Association, and she set up another activity that they could be involved in. And then all these guys developed as leaders, and I've mentioned some of those leaders in terms of their careers. Dr. Tim Smith spoke at one of our AGMs where the theme was careers, and we've had a number of other people. Alice Bryant is an OT, Claire Tittman's a teacher, James Thompson's a pilot, Alice Basford, daughter of one of the founder members of REACH, who spoke at our 25th and had served as chairman and has served as treasurer and secretary at various times. And his daughter is a pharmacist and now happily married. Susan is an engineer with British Rail. We have some fantastic role models coming through, and that the REACH kids can relate to, and that parents can actually see, oh my God, look at these guys. They all came back and are involved in the association because of the work that was done at the REACH activity groups. Again, we threw something at Sue with the advent of technology and said, well, you've now got to become our webmaster. And the first website was designed by Mark Broomfield up in Edinburgh. He was a prosthetist in Edinburgh. He presented us with a fait accompli. Here's a website. But in actual fact, we had to take that and do something with it, and put together our own website. Take all of that information that used to exist in filing cabinets and in people's heads and put it on an accessible medium, the World Wide Web. And Sue became a webmaster. And then when we decided that chat was the way to go, well, now you're the moderator of the chat board. And this is all pre-Facebook. And we later, building on Sue's total finger transplants video, we went on and we did a proper video for REACH, which later became a DVD for REACH. So we kept giving her more hats. In 2003, we decided to celebrate 25 years of REACH. Couldn't let it go without, marking that here we are. We've been in business for 25 years and how successful we are. We didn't really realise how successful we were until, we started to make contact with former chairmen, former trustees, former founder members, people who were still around. Well, can you imagine the amount of research that went into finding those people, making contact with them, telling them what we were doing and asking them would they come along? And again, we owe a debt of gratitude to Sue, because she did all that research for me and made the 25th birthday a success. What was really interesting was the reactions of those founder members when they saw REACH now. I mean, if you think about an AGM in a town hall for an hour or so on a Saturday, that's how it used to be. Now the AGM is a fully fledged family weekend, and we all get to meet each other and share experiences over, the last year and so on. So for the founder members to see what REACH has become now, and to look at the kids and how they were doing, and we made great contact out of that 25th birthday. For example, John Hyam came to that meeting. He's a former treasurer from the founding years of REACH. His daughter Karen, what's the name of the band again? Operation Rewind. She played at a number of our AGMs after that. Now an adult and a musician. Sam Drazy, songwriter and musician. And Alice Basford, I mentioned, a pharmacist. Another thing that got thrown at Sue, and she took in her stride, was that somebody in their wisdom decided to hold an AGM in Ireland. And we thought there was a huge risk associated with that, because would people travel? AGMs tend to be polarised. They can be Edinburgh last year, they can be Portsmouth this year, but what about taking people over to Ireland? Will they travel? Well, we did the groundwork and we made it happen, and we had our first AGM at the Red Cow, and that AGM actually was careers themed. So it was very successful, and that's not just me saying that. The feedback that I get from when I meet members, whether it be in Ireland or in the UK, was that was a great AGM and we thoroughly enjoyed it. The work that went into organising that, I couldn't have done that. We couldn't have done that on our own. There's the picture, sorry. That came about because of the groundwork that Sue did in addition to her normal role. And we could relax afterwards and smile and say, hey, we pulled it off. So that's Sue, Rita and myself. In addition to just some of the things I've mentioned, Sue happened to be nominated for a Limnas Association Award for Services to Others in 2004. She made it her business to attend the conferences, and she picked the conferences that matter. If you think about the public health nurses, the nurse visitors, the midwives, and the British Association of Prosthetists and Orthotists, these were key people who would come into contact with parents and reach children. So it was important that they knew about reach. It was important that they knew what we were and what we stood for. And Sue went to those exhibitions and put up a stand, and it was well known. Had the Reach DVD running in the background. It was well known amongst the professionals. And in fact, when you talk to any of the exhibitors, they all know Sue from coming to exhibitions. And I know the midwives from Ireland certainly travelled over to the midwives conference, and I would get phone calls then after that when they came back to tell me about new babies being born in their area. So it was really important that she did that, and she did that over and above. Whilst not a political animal, she got involved in Empower, which and the parliamentary limb lobby, that we had a voice in the Houses of Parliament, and that we were able to influence at that level. And we were only talking earlier, limb provision was in crisis a couple of years ago because of the funding and the cutting of budgets and so on, and everybody was worried about it. And the lobbies were active in the background to make sure that there was proper limb provision, there was funding, and there were centres of excellence. And believe it or not, thanks to the wars, limb provision has actually assumed a new urgency and is getting the funding and new development as well. In addition, Sue would have to produce our annual reports. We'd have to report to Companies House, we'd have to report to the Charities Commission, we had to draft under governance, we had to draft policies, guidelines, health and safety and so on, all the modern stuff. And invariably, because that was her role, she took it on and she made a success of it. This again is from the Millennium Year, and the editor tried to encapsulate what Sue did, and I'll read it because it kind of gives you an idea of what was involved. Sue's job is to run Reach day to day. She is the first contact for most new members, and operating out of the new office in Wellingborough, has a wealth of information and contacts on everything from adapted bicycles to complex surgery. She supports the trustees by preparing agendas and produces minutes of meetings. Her year is an endless round of meetings and conferences on behalf of Reach, culminating in the AGM, which she organises and runs. She attends local branch meetings, where possible, and she deals with letters and phone calls, banks checks, maintains our connections with other organisations here and abroad, and generally gives generously of her time and experience. As the mother of Natalie, who has had toe to hand transplants, she is also able to bring her own inside knowledge to the job. Oh yes, she also goes camping in Wales, water skiing in Raysbury, footballing in Manchester, and to most quiz nights. What she's left us, Sue's legacy, is that we are an organisation with an international profile, much greater than our actual size. Statistically, we're not a huge organisation, but look, we have representation here this weekend from Italy and from France, and you're very welcome. She's given us a model, she's helped us to produce a model that other organisations would like to emulate. And we are the envy of many large organisations with a lot more staff and a lot more resources than we have. And we have an influential forum. for parents, for professionals, and most importantly, for their each children. We've put together a little video because Sue did not blow her own trumpet, and I hope I've blown it a little bit for her today on behalf of the members. She was camera shy, she didn't want to be on video, she didn't want to be on photograph, but we have delved and we found some little moments that we can treasure, so hand on to you. Thank you.